My father and I were on a fishing trip 200 miles off the coast of Florida. Before then, I loved the ocean. I wasn't scared of it like I am now. My father and I cast out our lines. We always go on these trips, at least one each year. I always loved them. It was nice to bond with my dad this way. 30 minutes had passed and I hadn't caught anything. I'm so bored. Where's all the fish? I asked. Just be patient, they'll come, my dad said. The key to fishing is patience. He always says that. I was really annoyed that I wasn't catching anything. My dad got up from the spot. I'm gonna go take a leak. Didn't need to hear that. He walked away, giggling to himself. The ocean was rather calm. I watched as some seagulls flew past. Just then, my dad's fishing pole was yanked into the water. Whoa, I said. Before I could call my dad, my pole got yanked right out of my hands. I grabbed the railing to keep myself from falling in with it. I watched as it was pulled far beneath the surface. I stood there in shock by what just happened. What did just happen? My dad came back and realized our poles were gone. Where's our poles? They got pulled in, I said. He looked at me with confusion. What do you mean? I was just sitting here and your pole was yanked into the water and then mine. What did it? He asked. I don't know, I stuttered. He looked at me, then at the water. Well, there goes our whole trip, he said in disbelief. Yeah, but there's always next time, I said. Yeah, maybe, he said. He walked off into the boat's cabin. I stood there staring at the water. What was that? What creature could have done something like that? My dad and I decided to head home in the morning. I slept in my bed in the cabin, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what could have pulled our fishing poles into the water. A shark? A giant squid? I continued my rambling thoughts until I started to drift off to sleep. I almost was asleep until I was startled by the sudden shift of the boat. What was that? I thought to myself. Once the boat stopped rocking back and forth, I went outside to look. The sea was still calm, but something seemed different. The moon that was almost completely over the horizon was casting a beautiful yet eerie glow across the water. I looked all around the boat, but there was nothing there. I decided it was nothing and went back inside. As I'm walking back to my bed, something caught my eye. My dad's boat has one of those glass windows in the floor, the kind that lets you see fish and stuff underneath the boat. What caught my eye was that even at night the water was usually bright blue, mostly from the lights shining in it. But now it was dark, very dark. I got down on my knees to get a better look. Then I realized that it wasn't the water getting darker. It was an enormous shadow getting closer and closer. It looked as though it was about to devour the boat. I ran to wake up my dad. Dad! Dad! Wake up! I was shouting. He looked up at me, still not fully awake. What? There's something in the water. You were just dreaming. Go back to sleep. But I started pulling him up out of bed towards the window. When we got to the window, I stared at it in shock. There was nothing. No shadow, no creature, no nothing. See? Nothing there. Now go back to sleep. My dad walked away back to his bed. But I was so sure about what I'd seen. I wasn't dreaming. It was real. I got back into my bed but barely slept. What was that thing? What could have made an enormous shadow like that? The next morning was exhausting. Like I said, I barely slept that night. I spent that whole morning helping my dad get everything together so we could go home. As I was piling stuff into some boxes, I noticed something in the water. No, it couldn't be. Even with the sunlight shining on the water, I could still make out the enormous shadow getting bigger and bigger. Then something hit the boat. Next thing I knew, I was in the water. I can't swim. I felt myself being pulled down, deeper. I gazed down in shock as I got closer and closer to the giant shadow. This was it. I was gonna be devoured by... I don't even know. But then something grabbed my arm and started pulling me upward. I looked over to see that it was my dad. I took one last look down to see the creature turn away and swim back down to whatever depths of the ocean it had came. But not before getting my first non-shadowy glimpse of the creature. An enormous fin. My dad and I reached the surface. He managed to pull me, then himself, onto the deck of the boat. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Did you see it?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes." "What was it? A whale?" I asked. He looked at me, shook his head, and said, "Son, I don't know what that was, but it was definitely not a whale." We eventually got back home safely. We never told anyone about what happened. I still have nightmares about that thing. I will never go into the ocean again. My dad and I never go fishing anymore. Not after that day. Well, at least not in the ocean. We fish in lakes and ponds now. We catch more fish and have more fun that way. The ocean might have scared us away with whatever that thing was, but we knew we would be happy swimming in the safety of a nice pond or lake. That is, until one day I looked down into the water and noticed another large shadow rising up towards our boat, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.